I finally know why my parents hated me my whole life. It only took me 28 years. I felt like a black sheep growing up in an abusive family. My parents treated me differently from my sister and verbally abused me. When I felt lost and reached out to my aunt, she mentioned that my father had plane tickets to move abroad, but never did. This is when I realized I might have been conceived out of wedlock. I grew up in an abusive household. I was the black sheep of the family, and from a very young age, I knew that my parents saw me differently from my sister. My sister was spoiled in comparison. Every single bad thing that happened in that house was always my fault in my parents' eyes. My father would constantly tell me out of the blue how much happier he'd be if he didn't have kids, how I make his life miserable, that I am a literal demon and not human, and all the ways he wanted to physically hurt me. That's not even the half of it. He would beat me to the point I couldn't walk properly, but it wasn't as common as the emotional abuse. My mother, on the other hand, just watched and would pretend like nothing happened. Anyway, a few months ago, I was feeling very lost in my life. I have a lot of mental health issues from the childhood trauma and didn't know what to do with myself. I decided to call my aunt, who has lived overseas for almost 30 years now. I asked her how she managed to move abroad, and she said in her words, "I didn't plan it. The plane tickets didn't belong to me. They were your father's tickets, but you should ask him why he didn't go. It's a funny story." My heart dropped immediately. It's like a lifetime of mystery suddenly made sense. My aunt has lived overseas for almost the same amount of time I've been alive. My father has wanted to live abroad for his whole life. My mother was super religious at the time, so an abortion would have been out of the question for her. So currently, I believe I was conceived out of wedlock, and that my father hasn't been able to move because of me. My parents were always suspiciously adamant that I wasn't a mistake. Completely out the blue, they would say how I was an intentional choice. Definitely not a mistake on their part, even when extended family would always look at me differently than they did my sister. Literally, everything makes sense. Why my parents were never really affectionate with each other. Why, when I was 8 years old, asked my mother how my father proposed, and she said it was an agreement. The way my father would call me a mistake all the time in primary school. Why he always blamed every single wrong thing that happened to him on me. It all makes sense. I don't know whether I should laugh or cry. My whole life, from as long as I can remember, believed that I was literally subhuman. I thought that there was something bad wrong about me fundamentally, like I was born broken or a mistake or something. I'd work extra hard at school and always had the highest grades. I tried hard to always be polite, always be respectful, never talk out of turn, didn't do drugs, etc. I tried so damn hard to be someone worth loving, and I always failed. Thinking back on my mental health problems now is crazy. I struggle with personal hygiene and cleanliness, and overly clean spaces scare me. I realize that comes from the neglect. I still only have one pair of shoes from 3 years ago, because deep down, I don't think I deserve nice things. I haven't had new clothes in probably 15 years because of this mindset I've been trained to have. I bought one jacket yesterday and instantly started dissociating at the mall. Doing anything at all that relates to taking care of myself fills me with anxiety. I wish little me knew that it was never her, that she is perfectly normal little girl, and that she deserved better. Relevant comments. Commenter: I do not care for the character of your father. I am sorry that he said and did those things. Millions of people are born in situations like this, and his reaction was BS to the max. Commenter: now you're free, my friend. No longer do you have to wonder. Now it's up to you to decide how you live your life from this moment onwards. I'm excited for you. Commenter: had a similar realization a few years ago. Important thing I'd like to add, and something that I keep telling myself. Your parents were there when they conceived you. Your dad was into the making part of you, and he and your mother are the ones to blame for this mess. You were just a child that just out of nowhere got born, did nothing wrong, and got all the blame for the mistake your parents made. There is no difference between every other child that ever got born and between you. There's no difference between you and the kid that came at an unfortunate time, but got all the love it deserved because their parents did step and they did take their responsibility. Please be kind to you and the little girl you once were. After 28 years, you finally deserve that. Story 2. Being the child of wealthy narc parents is worse in many regards because you experience what it's like to have a nice life but never truly benefit from it. They also have more power to cover up the abuse. If you know, you know. It's hard to explain it. You have every advantage of a nice school and food and clothes and homes, and yet in many ways you're given less than kids you know who come from no well-off families. I don't want to sound too materialistic or ungrateful on this next point. I had plenty of toys and gifts growing up, but there was a certain irony in seeing my friends receive way more and much nicer gifts, and having way more game systems and video games despite their parents having way less than ours. Everyone just assumed you have cash, that you have the same wealth, so they don't help you, or even actively hold it against you. I mean, you don't need help. Dad gives you money, right? I mean, obviously your dad just gives you money, right? He has 6 homes and almost $6 million in his bank account, so obviously he just pays your way, right? So why do you need a loan for a business? DOS helps you, obviously. People literally think I have hundreds of thousands of dollars in my bank account the instant they see my dad's home. My brothers live in 1-bedroom apartments, and I sleep out of my workshop. I've slept under a bridge for a while before, and I've also had to live out of my car. At one point, my brother had to prostitute himself to make due rent. My dad drives a $120,000 electric vehicle, and I drive a $3,000 with an oil leak. I don't hate my life materialistically. I'm actually doing okay, but it's just completely fucked when you think about it. He has told us repeatedly he plans to spend all his money on boats and vacations, so we should expect to be left nothing. I know a lot of users here might like to say nobody is entitled to an inheritance, and while that's technically true, the reality is every single rich and powerful family that exists today got there because their parents actually gave a fuck enough to set up a legacy for them. Otherwise, your kids are just starting from scratch, over and over again. So go ahead, tell your kids to go fuck themselves. Just expect your children to do the same, and them to do the same, forever and ever being stuck in generational poverty. Story 3, YBTA. If I, 30, told my sister, 36, I'm not her courier boy, I'll lead right off with the fact that she sold me her 2014 car for $1,000 a few months ago. It works great and was a huge upgrade for me. My sister moved down here a few months ago. The plan when she came down was that I would help her with my niece when available. We live about 30 minutes apart. Not a terrible drive, but not a short one either. And if I have to head for her place around rush hour, it can get rough. My job is pretty easy, but I've been out of my place either on work trips or doing local projects every single day since September 3rd. The 2 days I haven't had anything work-related were for my niece's party, help setting up and cleaning everything after, and the day before a large trip where I had to do prep work for said trip, my own personal home things, and a quick breakfast meetup. The issue really started last Friday. My sister spent a month telling me to arrange my calendar so that I could help her early in the morning. That wasn't an issue. I had requested the day off and arranged it so that I could zip out at 6:30 a.m. and do my duties, then could handle work prep, then gym, cooking, last-minute prep. The day before, she tells me her plans have changed. I now have to help her at 3 p.m. I inform her that I had to reschedule my stuff, but I could comfortably do 4 p.m. instead. She doesn't seem pleased over text, but I assure myself that it's not that big a deal, since I'm still accommodating her. She runs to our mom and complains about how I'm a shitty uncle and unreliable, and that I shouldn't ever ask her to do any favors ever again. I don't ask her to do anything because I'm largely pretty self-reliant and am also a single guy with a good routine. Today she spent the day telling me to watch her dog, but work is busy as well. I just came back from a long trip yesterday, and today I had to head to another project. The dog has been alone since 11 a.m. Now I need to make an hour trip from my work site to pick her up at the airport. But by the time I make the trip and pick her up and drop her off, the dog will have been alone 8 hours, so I need to go back home and walk him. But my original plan after work was to shop, and I still have to do that. And the closest Walmart is closer to my work site than my place, so I'm making another trip after I walk the dog, and hopefully we'll make it out of the store at 8:30, and then have to drive back home from there. I feel overwhelmed with this, and the knowledge that me constantly accommodating her like this, because now she's getting more comfortable asking me to help her multiple times a week. I'm behind on work and personal stuff. I haven't gone running in over a week. I've been so busy with my own things, and I can't complain because the cycle where she acts shitty will start all over again. I don't complain to her or my mom at all, and I feel like it'll be a bigger headache if I even imply this upsets me, but she's only going to do this more and more. This is my busiest month, and I can't find time for myself. I feel trapped. Do I constantly have to put myself out just because she helped me months ago with a cheap car? Edit. A big part of this future stress is that she's planning on moving an hour away from me, and she's still expecting me to uproot everything for her, with her excuse being that it's technically the same distance if I spend $5 on tolls each way. My parents only take her side. They keep telling me that I should leave my current place to be closer to her and pay more money for it, to be further from work, further from where my work projects are, further from my friends and the places I go to hang out, all to be of service to her. Edit 2. To demonstrate how little my time means to her, she canceled on me like I was a rideshare driver once I was 30 mins away from the airport because she didn't want to have to wait 30 more minutes, and she found an Uber driver screwdriver for cheaper. Completely wasting the time she made me rearrange for her convenience, and I couldn't dare imply I'm upset because she was the real inconvenienced one. Update. Thanks everyone. Definitely gave me a lot to think about. Looking back at how I felt when I wrote this all out, I was absolutely pissed. I do agree I'll need to start being more assertive. I do enjoy helping them, and I want to be a good role model for my niece. I would never go low contact on them. I just wanted a break. Relevant comments. Commenter. No, you don't owe her anything. She got money, you got a car, so transaction complete. Let her act shitty. She's an adult. She'll either get over it or not. Neither are your responsibility. Don't take on the role of being her significant other, which is what it sounds like she's trying to do, whether she sees it that way or not. You wouldn't be TA. You have your own life, and it takes priority over anyone else. Commenter. Learn to say no. It is a complete sentence all on its own. You'll be doing yourself a disservice if you don't. Story 4. Aitah for attending my ex's wedding. I don't know if I am in the wrong or I am being gaslit. I, 36F, attended my ex's, 37M, wedding this weekend, and I apparently failed a test. My ex, Adam, and I dated in high school from the time we were 15, 18, when we amicably split up to go to college in different states. Since college, we've kept in Facebook familiar contact where we'd wish each other happy birthday or congratulate each other on big milestones, but have had no other contact in the 20 or so years since then. About a year ago, I saw his engagement post on his Facebook and congratulated him. A few months ago, he Facebook messaged me, asked how I was doing, and said he wanted to have a bit of a high school get-together at his wedding since he was holding it in our hometown. He was inviting most of our mutual friend circle, and he'd love for me to attend too. I hadn't seen most of these friends in over a decade, and I thought the idea sounded fun, so I accepted the invitation. The wedding was this past weekend, and it was incredibly normal. I attended with my husband. He got to meet all of my high school friends and their partners, and we had a great time. Sunday morning, I woke up to a slew of Facebook messages from my ex's new wife about my audacity to attend the wedding, and how out of all his former girlfriends, I was the only one who failed the test. She said that clearly you shouldn't attend an ex's wedding unless you're still hung up on them, and how I must be planning to steal her new husband away. I was shocked, but also apologized if I had been unwelcomed, and how I must have misunderstood as my reason for attending was to see old friends. She immediately responded, and again said that no sane woman, with good intentions, would ever think it was okay to attend their ex's wedding. I again apologized if I was unwelcomed, and hoped my presence hadn't detracted from her day. I then messaged my ex, and apologized if I had misunderstood and hoped I hadn't caused any issues. He replied that he was glad I attended. The invitation had been sincere. There was no separate event planned. He was glad to see the old friend group and apologized about his new wife's messages. I left it at that, thinking it was a closed matter. A few hours later, the new wife is messaging me again, complaining about how I was trying to manipulate her new husband to make her look crazy. I decided this was not a ship I wanted to sail on, took a screenshot of all her messages and my replies, sent them to the ex, and said I was just going to go ahead and block them both so I couldn't be accused of inappropriate contact with anyone. Yesterday, I started getting messages from the bride's sister saying I poisoned my ex against his new wife, and I should have kept the messages to myself. I'm also being told I could have just avoided all of this by knowing I shouldn't attend my ex's wedding. I'm honestly not sure if I'm in the wrong or I'm being gaslit by an insecure woman and her sister. So, Aitah for attending my ex's wedding? Relevant comments. Commenter. Oh my stars. You are NTA and your friend's wife is batshit crazy. First of all, he is not your ex. You dated for a few years when you were kids. And yes, I get that you may have been each other's first love and or other firsts, given your ages, but you were teenagers and are now pushing 40. Block the sister and never respond to anyone involved in this again. OP. That's very much how it feels. We were so young, and little high school romances are so very different than adult relationships. He's an ex in the loosest sense. Commenter. If she was uncomfortable with any exes coming, she should have told her fiancé before the wedding. You were there with your husband, so you had not even an appearance of anything inappropriate. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest ones. Have a great day.